Well, they're setting out lunch. Lunch is looking very good at the moment, so I'm the last stop, so let me press on. So what I'm going to be talking about fairly briefly is the idea of run, change, and transform. And I'm going to be focusing a little bit more on knowledge, machine learning, and AI. So I really like this diagram, this kind of the diagram on the left-hand side, because it's three really useful questions you need to ask when you're talking to someone. What features and what functionality do you need to run your business effectively? What sort of things are you going to need to do to really start to change it? And then what would you have to do to completely transform your business? So that's a really good way to start thinking. You can think of that as a 3-year plan or just 3 stages to go through. But if you don't have that in your mind, if you've not asked the questions, then you're really setting off with very little idea of where you want to get to. Now, as I go through this, I'll be looking at the areas where you're going to start to do different things at each level, but that's not always the case. Sometimes, to go from running to transforming, you just need to do more of the same. So if you've got a really good knowledge base in your customer service area, it's a simple step to put it into human resources, 3 or 4 other operations, sharing the same platform in a shared services model, and all of a sudden, there's a bigger impact on the business. However, in some cases, what you do in a layer, you need to do something different in order to enable change at the next level. So that's what I'll mention a little bit as well. So I'm going to use this little diagram 2 or 3 times as we go through. So this is the kind of graphic of what's going on, particularly in a customer service situation. I've got all my customers on the left. There's some interactions I'm having in the middle. I've got all my agents. They've got various tools. And I'm trying to manage and optimize. So at the run level, I'm trying just to run the business effectively. And a lot of the case here, I'll be treating pretty much all my customers the same. I'll just be treating, each call comes in will be much the same. I'm going to try and automate some if I can through self-service, but my prime goal at this level is to be really consistent. So it doesn't matter who you get the same answer or the same answer across different channels. As I move across to the right, I'm going to be treating my agents pretty much the same. Even if you've been there 1 month or 20 years, you'll probably get the same kind of information. It's not bad, but it's a start. And then when I come to manage performance, I can look at what content people are using. I can look at how the agents perform in terms of their key KPIs, time on the call, first time fix, and so on. I can map that back to the amount of contact they're using. And when I come to try and optimize that, I'm down to things like looking at the tone of voice of each article or maybe breaking it down into more bite-sized chunks, as Kurt was showing earlier. So here's a couple of screenshots. This is a really nice, clean example of a recent deployment. So if you look there at the top, I start with search. I've got autocomplete, also suggest. There's a news area where I can put stuff you might need to know. Below that, I've got the various blocks of content, so the topics I'm looking at. Top right is a kind of trending. What's new, what's being used in the contact center. Then the middle of the right is all the kind of tools I might want to use during the daily business. And if you look at our Flex desktop, they could be in the same system as this one, in the same screen. And down at the bottom, things I as an agent have pinned. And if I go on a bit further, we'll have a little bit of guided help here. So as soon as I'm into a flow, a guided help flow, all the other distraction goes away. And now I've got some questions, questions and answers. As I move across to the right, if I need to do things I need to say, things I've got to do, they're all there. And if any solutions crop up, they'll appear on the right. And the questions I've asked, if I want to go and change my mind, are down at the bottom. So nice and easy, more or less an out-of-the-box deployment. And straight away, you're running your business more effectively. So the kind of tools you need at this level, you're going to do a little bit of self-service, because that's where you can have the biggest value. You can certainly do that on calls that are just about information. You get a lot of benefit by having a single knowledge base for all your agents, standardized content, and a standardized form of governance. So there you are, you've achieved quite a step forward from sort of the Wild West of lots of different sources of content. Some of the challenges at this stage, when you're at the run stage, are you've got to make the move from whatever you're using before, maybe 3 or 4 different knowledge bases, into now you're all using this one. And it's critical that you get the buy-in from your users. Adoption is key. We'll hear more about this later today. But you've really got to work on keeping the agents happy through that transition so that they feel they own the system, they feel they're being heard, they can have their feedback, and you get their buy-in. On the opportunities side, you can establish the knowledge base as a single place to go for all your help, and you can do a kind of content refresh. So one of the things you don't want to do is take all the content you've had before and try and drag it across into the new system, because you typically don't know whether it's used, you don't know who owns it, you don't know if it's current or not. So typically you'll use a federation. You'll leave the stuff where it is, you'll federate it so that when you search for it, it can be pulled back into the eGain knowledge base, and then week by week you look at the reports, see if what's being used, and if it's being used, if people are finding it useful, migrate it. So, the analogy is you move house, you put the essential stuff in the house, the rest you put in the garage, and then after 6 months, if you haven't gone and got it from the garage, you can put it on eBay or something. So you need to do that with your content because it just sits around. So now moving up to the next level, how do we really start to change the business? So coming back to this diagram, you'll see when you start to do changing the business, you've got to start trying to treat customers as individuals. You've got to get the data you know about them so that influences the experience they get. And you'll probably try and do a little bit more automation because you'll be able to use some more guided help, guided process on the web. You're still going to be treating your agents pretty much the same. But the big change here is if you're using the knowledge base, not just to find the answer, but also to classify what the call was about, then you suddenly open up a whole new area where you can now talk in terms of, so what is the key process that is causing satisfaction? So instead of talking about call performance, you can talk about what is the underlying process and how is that process performing. And when it comes to the optimization, the way to optimize is to get more and more data into the system. So anytime an agent, an advisor, is asking a question and that data is already in your system somewhere, that's a wasted opportunity. See if you can bring that in so they're automatically answering that question. So at this level of change, it's about compliance. You've gone from being consistent, now you're trying to be as compliant as you can be. So here are some screens we were working on as a bit of research with a client. Their challenge was they say, all my agents are different. Some of them like to search, some of them like to use an A to Z, some of them like to have all their different favorites. And all the time we want to get, so in this case, we're showing, if I do that, so up here, we've got the key customer information. Rather than go and look in your CRM, we'll bring that into the system, and that'll persist all the way through the call. So you know that you don't have to write it on a Post-it note and so on. So this gives us a nicer way of doing it. And when we come to do, again, we're not showing anything other here than, if we look at the bit in the middle there, here, what they found is they've got some quite long processes. And what the agents wanted was to, before I launch into this 10-minute process, I want to be able to say, hey, we're going to need this, and this bit of information. It's going to take this long. Are you ready to go? And if you're ready to go, we hit the Start Now button. If you're not ready to go, we'll bookmark this, and when you come back next time you call with all the information, we'll go from this point. So it's being able to give that. But the key thing this organization wanted, it was about adoption, and adoption was really about engagement. They wanted every agent to be giving an opinion on every call. So we've got the, rate this call, and here you can see the summaries and stuff here. So trying to decorate the call with all useful information that might help the agent be better prepared. So tools you need at this level, you're typically using a lot more of the AI-guided process. So the dynamic step-by-step, driven by the customer's data. Using the data integration so that a different customer, two different customers will see two different calls because you've taken account of what you know about them. And you're getting increased analytics. So this is really crucial. You're using the fact that the knowledge base is categorizing the call, so you really know in great detail what that call's about. So instead of having a tick list of 30 call items, you've got maybe 800 or 900 detailed classifications, and the system is consistently assigning those. So when you get to this late in the change, the more you're bringing into the system, the more stakeholders you're getting. So you're getting, and the more stakeholders you've got, the more people you've got to check before you do a change. So the complexity of change may go up. And you've also got to keep the agent engagement. because here you're trying to get the agents, not agent buy-in, not agent usage, but keeping the agents contributing, making sure they know it's their system. So typically you've got a big opportunity for self-service and this idea of a smart start. So I can go a certain way on the self-service, pause it, resume on the web or resume in chat. And then what we're starting to see is once I've got a documented process that doesn't really need much agent involvement, I can hand over, I can go into bot mode and maybe use other RPA tools to speed up the end of the call. So the goal at the change level is any agent, any call. So very few transfers, the agents being able to handle it all. So moving to the third stage, you're trying to go to actually transform. And the first part of that transformation comes from the way you did the change stage. As soon as you've got really detailed knowledge about what your calls are about, then your whole management can start to focus in week by week which specific process is giving us the lowest net promoter score, which one is giving us the highest. And instead of trying to manage all 20,000 data items, you focus in on the 2 or 3 that'll make a difference this week. So that the transformation stage, you're just using the data you've got from the change stage, but using it in a different way. So what we're trying to say here is that we're trying to treat our customers as individuals and starting to try and treat our agents as different. So at this stage, if you've been there 20 years, give them some credit for being there 20 years because they've got skills and experience you need to use. Because the goal at this level, at least amongst the customer we're saying, is to have an authentic experience. We know it'll be consistent. We know it'll be compliant. But this time, I want to leave the call having got the right answer and had a really useful, natural, authentic experience with an agent. So in this case, instead of doing more and more point-by-point guidance, I'm stepping back. I'm saying, here's a framework within which you as an agent can use your skills and judgment in a way that we can still meet our goals, but you can adapt it to the person, the very real person you're talking to. So we're getting personal. Okay? So at this level, we're using the AI guidance, and we're bringing more data in. We're bringing data about who the agent is. So if an agent has used this process 20 times this month, give them a shortcut. Allow them to see a set of tick boxes. If it's their first week, or if that process just changed yesterday, then automatically step back to a more step-by-step approach so that they realize it's changed and they learn the new one. And so we can do quite a lot of web self-service. So I'm going to move here onto the next step of transformation, because what we're finding at the moment, and this we're working with just 1 or 2 customers at this stage, these are people who've got to the change level. They've got all of their customers using AI-guided flows on every call where they need it. So the benefit there is if you just see what's going on here. Here we've got a complicated interaction, and we do a lot of work in the mobile sector. So this one is, I can't connect to the internet on my mobile phone. Now there's thousands and thousands and thousands of different reasons why that might be across the board. But what this company and companies like them have done is take all that complexity and build an AI-guided flow that will automatically get you to the answer. It might take 20, 30 questions, but it's the best knowledge they have as a company, and every agent is following that. So you've got the starting point there. That's what you're using at the change level. But this next step is how can we go before that? So the thing there is once you've got agents going through every call, answering the data, giving the accurate answer, then we've suddenly got a very deep, very rich set of data that is a really good basis for machine learning. We know what the customer wanted in the first place. We know everything that happened, and we know exactly how it finished, and we know exactly what solved it. So now we've got a huge training set that we can use. So we can take that training data, and we can train a machine learning neural net so that it can predict, and then we can use that to start to transform the agent experience. So as you can see here, as soon as we've got enough data to have a confident prediction of what we think will be next, then we can offer them, okay, the machine learning thinks this is the right answer. And if it is, we can save a big chunk of the diagnostics. If it isn't the thing, we've still got to be able to go back and say, okay, that didn't work. So you jump back into the old diagnostic flow, but at this point. So it'll probably save a decent amount too. So what we're finding is in order to use machine learning, first of all, you need really good training data, really accurate details of what happens on every call. But then the second thing you need is a means to intervene on the call. You need the agents to be using a tool that you can dynamically change and say, hey, for this customer, the only thing they need to do is to switch on roaming, and the rest is done. So this is the way we're going to see that the transformation comes from doing things differently at the change level to get you the data to go forward. So just wrapping up the transform level a little bit. At this level, we've got a number of customers at this level, and it's truly a mission-critical tool. If it stops working, they don't take calls. So the challenge at that side is to maintain an obsession with making it better. The opportunities are to take agents and make them ambassadors, allow them to use the tool to go beyond what's in it to give great experiences. So summarizing out there, as we go from run, change, transform, when you're starting, there's a risk you're going to be inconsistent, non-compliant, and off-script. As you go up the pyramid, you become consistent, compliant, and on-brand. And then at the end, you're getting to the point where the agents are doing the right thing. They have trusted autonomy within the framework of the system, and the experience people are getting is personal. Now, one last thing to wrap up to that, which is something which isn't there yet, but it's something we've got a couple of people interested in, and it echoes a little bit of what was said earlier today. Because if you look at what's the reality, when somebody calls in, they'll say all this stuff on the right here, a lot of rich detail, and the agent is saying, right, I hear what you're saying, what I'm hearing is a Wi-Fi problem, okay? And they're not taking advantage of all that really important data. So using speech to text, using machine learning to provide that, we can bring that into our system. And there's a number of things we can get out of it. Yes, we can pick out the intent pretty well. We can pick out that it's a problem with the Wi-Fi. We can also pick out the sentiment. We can tell whether you're happy or unhappy. But in this case, there might be more than one intent. In this example, yes, you've got a problem, but B, you might be wanting to complain because it's happened before. And the next thing you can do is you can read that text and you can put it into some of the natural language processing they have within the eGain knowledge tool. And you can auto-answer those 5 questions below because the customer is telling me it was working before, it's not working now. So we can jump ahead and pre-answer some of the things and not have to ask them again. And then with speech, we can do a couple of other things as well. What you normally see on a call is somebody will say, okay, this is what have we done, this is what I've done for you, anything else I can do? No. And then they'll sit down and type all that into the system. Whereas really, you could have captured everything they said, turned it into text, and put it into the wrap code. And other things we can do, which are quite subtle, we can prevent you from moving on to a step until we've actually heard you say the exact right wordage. So rather than go into the call logs to see if you're compliant, we can actually make it so that you can't move on to the next question. Anyway, so that's pretty much the end of the journey. I'm going to finish with the fact that there's a lot of opportunities for you guys to try this stuff out with our Innovation in 30 Days program. So anything you've seen here today, go and talk to the people on the stands, and you may be able to see if it works in your own environment, and then decide how you want to proceed. So call to lunch now. Thanks very much for your time.